Hi there everybody, my name is Kate and welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. Where are we again? Yeah, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. Thank you for joining me. Hondo and I are on our way home from a nice long hike today, where I'm pretty sure they're manufacturing fairies in those woods over there. It's very magical. There's a lot of green moss and lots of creeks and some really cool waterfall action. It's beautiful here in Colorado where I live. So anyway, let's get to the point of this. I recently was with a group of people that we were doing an integration of some experiences we'd had, and this man he's been doing psychedelics for a very long time, and that was the process by which we were reaching this integration was through plant medicine and ayahuasca. So we were talking about, you know, the use of psychedelics to help us meet different places in ourselves and plant medicine, etc. And I had to laugh because he's been using psychedelics, as I said, for a very long time, in a very therapeutic process, and he actually has a whole lot of trauma and a whole lot of history that isn't relevant, other than to say significant trauma from childhood, as well as, you know, the trauma he was enacting on his own self, you know, as a result of that, you know, childhood trauma. It was pretty severe. And so as we were talking and doing our integration, he mentioned something about, you know, I just feel like I have this darkness in me, and it's just so ugly, and it's just so nasty, and, you know, it's so hateful, and it really hates me. That thing, this knot in my stomach, like he was reaching for his solar plexus area and his sacral and saying this knot in me, it just feels like a big giant demon of some kind. And I don't know if he meant straight, you know, demon from what I would consider from the Bible or not. I just got the fact that he meant, you know, this very dark, ugly bundle of just shit that hates me. It screams, it has a whole voice, and, you know, it wants me to go back to my addictions. It wants me to, you know, do terrible things. It talks really nasty to me. And he said, and you know what? He said, I know it's bullshit, because my guides, they don't talk shit to me like that. They don't hate me. They don't talk to me like that. They're not mean. And I had to laugh, because that's one of the ways that we can tell. Finally figured out for myself too, and I was glad that he was confirming what works for me as well, is to know that if I hear something in my head, if I'm wrestling with an issue, and particularly at the beginning of my awakening, as I was coming in to understand myself more as a sovereign spiritual being with a whole lot of gifts that, yeah, make the 3D world look very different when we fully understand that. When I was at the beginning of that, I would be very plagued in trying to figure out, you know, what are the voices that I'm hearing? What are the different, you know, pieces of information that I'm hearing coming up inside of me? Is that internal dialogue that is me? Is it a guide? How do I know? And one of the ways that I differentiate every single time at this point is the same exact thing that man said, that my guides are not mean to me. However, the programming of my own mind, what I was told every day of my life in childhood, and, you know, up until right now, you know, that I'm going to denounce any of that, you know, sacred cow, thank you, one more level of no, got to go, to redesign the mind, that every single time that something ugly comes up, that's just a programming of the mind. That's not me. That's not my inner self. My higher self could not possibly be an asshole to me. That's what he said, and I loved that. My guides are not assholes. My higher self is not an asshole. You know, he goes, I might be an asshole, however, my higher self is not an asshole. And if that isn't an asshole, then there isn't a guide above that who's going to be one either. And he's absolutely correct in my understanding. I concur with that, you know, if we're talking about higher realms, our higher self is already in a realm above 3D, and that's what we're constantly evolving to be, into that higher consciousness of whatever our higher self is. It's always evolving. If we're evolving down here and reaching for that, it's always going to be evolving and taking that Fibonacci spiral, and, you know, keep on peeling the onion and, you know, keep it moving. That part of us is pure. it is in a state of pureness where ego does not exist. And so anything that is counseling with our higher selves, or that we're able to pull into our 3D ears or our mind or our understanding here in the 3D as we're experiencing the 5D, none of that has, the programming of you're an asshole, you're a jerk, you're terrible, you're awful. Even if we feel like we have done, or we have actually done horrible stuff, even murderers, their higher selves are not going to tell them what a dirtbag they are. I know that disappoints a whole bunch of people. However, in my understanding and the understanding of Jesus Christ, that no, everybody has the ability to understand a higher vision of themselves. And that's the whole point of reaching into spirituality and having guides and having a higher self and relying on a whole hierarchy that isn't down here doing the 3D, isn't down here choosing, egoically or in dark closets or dark spaces, or having to recover from people having done horrible things to us because they were digging around in their, nasty bag. So if we look to our higher self to give us information, and we know that I hear something that sounds like, oh, I'm a terrible person, I'm a this, that, or the other, then that's definitely not our higher self, and we can put parameters on the communication. For the longest time, I didn't always know, who I was talking to, what facet of myself I was talking to, what part of my team. Sometimes I have spiritual guides that are only there temporarily. We're just here pinch hitting, to work through this one issue or this particular time in your life. And I have a fixed core that's with me all the time, and of course at any time, if I'm confused or wondering, or I don't know what's going on, I can always, say, hey, hold on a second, I don't know what's going on. I need instant help right now. And growing that relationship, with finding out, what's an easy way for me to distinguish, what is speaking to me. And the first one that right out of the gate is that if it's telling me that I'm bad, or I should be ashamed of myself, or any of that, that's old programming. That's somebody telling you a big old fat lie, before that a child would have no reason not to believe it. That's what was programmed into us, when we were children. If we don't understand ourselves to be beautiful, delightful human beings, no matter how we behave, if we don't know that, yeah, I was a real jerk back there, however, I'm not a worthless, sack of meat here, I still have value and worth on the planet, it doesn't mean our behavior is just, expunged just because we know that we're, beautiful souls. We still have to be accountable for our behavior. However, we're quite quick as human beings to just dispose of people whose behavior is bad. However, that behavior came to be from somewhere, and it came from initially bad programming, and generations later we got a whole lot of that to work through. And so the way that I quickly differentiate something that doesn't belong to me is if it's telling something nasty to me, if it's saying something nasty about me, it's telling me that I'm nasty, if it's telling me something that makes me feel ashamed or is drilling into my mind. At this point, some of those old tapes, they have names on them, like, oh yeah, that's not my dialogue, that's not words that I actually use in my day-to-day life right now. They're words that I repeated because they were what I heard my whole life, and it was dialogue and rhetoric and bullshit that I said because it was what was put into my head. However, the person I am today, broken free from all that, I don't use that language. So when I hear that in my head, I go, oh, that's so-and-so, or that's so-and-so, or that's so-and-so, or I just say, no, that's not me, that's not my daily language. I don't talk nasty to me, and I don't let anybody else talk nasty to me either, for very long before I separate. And if it's coming in my own head, oh no, that's programming, delete that, and let's go on and find a way. Ask, if I'm confused about it, if usually catching it and just saying, yeah, that's some old bullshit right there, that's not true, got to go, got to go. If that doesn't take care of it, then I ask, how can I remove these thoughts from taking root or taking me into some place where I'm going to feel that shame or that gross or that nasty. And if I do get taken into that, that's an area where I need to do some cleaning. I need to do a little bit of work. I need to do some replacement of that old baggage and those old tapes and those old bullshit paradigm beliefs that tell us that we're awful, we're horrible people, etc., the shame stuff. And that is absolutely, if we're getting brought into the shame and we start feeling it and like get locked into it and can't easily get out of it, then we have work to do. And we can use that as a gift. You know, we don't have to fall into the shame bucket and never get back out. It's a matter of, ooh, I'm feeling this way. Let me use one of those techniques that I learned, that I was practicing or finding out before I fell into this shame bucket. Let me go reach for one of those, or start praying instantly for, I need help because I'm feeling in a shame bucket. And it's not that I don't ever fall into one here and there. I do. And when I do, and I'm getting confused and wondering, what am I supposed to do? That's exactly when I reach out and say, look, I'm hearing stuff that is talking nasty, I'm feeling nasty, and I'm feeling encouraged to reach into a place in me that just, you know, should feel bad for itself, or should be, you know, not existing because somebody doesn't like me, or, you know, people they hate me, they don't like what I'm doing, or, you know, blah, 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 all the bullshit from, you know, growing up in that, and also hearing that, you know, here and there, as being somebody who's out there on the fringe of, you know, society, believing things that the regular old matrix just doesn't believe. That can bring some hate. You know, it can bring a whole lot of resistance for people that are stuck in their old tapes and beliefs and perpetrating those crimes against humanity by believing it to begin with. They're believing that they're entitled to be saying it to anybody else. You know, we're all guilty on one side or the other, but we don't need to have that shame stuff. So if anything inside of your head is encouraging you to feel bad for yourself, or encouraging you to cause harm to yourself or anyone else, that's not your higher self. That's not your team. That is not your highest timeline. And unless we're just looking to, you know, continue to work in the dark stuff, that I'm not talking to people that are anxiously awaiting, you know, the next dark and evil, you know, thing they can do. I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to people that, you know, are wanting to figure out how they can move on with their life. And how do I figure out what's talking to me? Is it my guide? Is it me? Is it, you know, something outside of me? If it's telling you something negative, it's telling you something that you're bad and you're wrong, or it's telling you to do something, you know, really hurtful of any kind, whether it's just little or a lot, hurtful to yourself or another, to cause harm, to, you know, be deceitful, to steal, to cheat, to lie, any of that stuff, then that is not your higher self. You can toss that off to an old misunderstanding of yourself that's either trying to come up and say, hey, can you help me understand what's real here? Can you show me what to do? Can you show me a new way that I can get through this? Because, you know, I don't understand it. And being very gentle and kind with ourselves, and offering the mothering and the fathering that most of us didn't have, you know, that is really 1144, really most helpful for moving through those periods of transition when we're looking to, you know, break free from dysfunctional and toxic ideas. It takes a whole lot more. If we were taken to those places of toxicity and dysfunction, we didn't have the parents or the parental structure or the caretakers that were showing us. Otherwise, we wouldn't need to be breaking out. If we didn't have jailers, we wouldn't need to be breaking out of jail now, would we? So we need to find ways and hunt them down and ask inside, you know, how can I know who is my guide? How can I know what is my guide? How can I know what to listen to? Where can I go that I can nurture myself and bring that sense of mothering and fathering to me, to know what's right for me to listen to, what's not right for me to listen to, what's going to guide me to my greatest expression of me, that I no longer am feeling weighed down or anchored down by this sense of guilt or shame or some other, you know, awful stuff that somebody's trying to hang on my name. And the other way, you know, that we can look at our spiritual team is that they're not assholes, is to really, you know, start asking questions. I don't know why people sometimes believe that, you know, talking to guides or talking to our spirit team, talking to the, you know, unskinned, the non-corporeal realms, that there's some, you know, sense of, I couldn't possibly be doing that. And I encourage anybody that if you wish to be talking to someone in spirit, or, you know, their spirit, whether they're dead or alive, or if it's a rock or a tree or a plant or an animal, you know, if you wish to be honing that skill and then you believe that you want to do that, there's a reason that you are being called to do that, then start doing that. You know, I encourage you to start, you know, finding a way. Say, please tell me how I can communicate better to understand what my team is, because teams aren't always angels. You know, they don't all come from the angelic realms. Some of our ancestors were ones that walked on earth, and some of them aren't. You know, I mean, we've got all kinds of different support in the unseen realms that, you know, when we want to know something, it's okay if we ask. You know, it's quite all right to say, hey, are you related to me? And if you are, how? You know, are you in my family somehow here on earth, or do you come from somewhere else? Are you animal? Are you some sort of a starseed nation or a star family that, you know, you can tell me about? That's how people open up those doors to find out what they're hearing, you know, and differentiating in their mind when they're hearing guidance from someone or something, then they know. And it can sound really kooky, but that's okay as long as it's not talking nasty to you. Then, you know, what do you care if it's not real? Is it bettering your life? If your mind, the matrix, or the programming, excuse me, or any of that is asking you to do something harmful to self or others, then I'd say, you know, no, that's a terrible way to go with it. However, the other side is that it's encouraging you to think some fanciful thoughts, then write a book. You know, if you can't get past the idea that this is just crazy, then write a book or consider it just a fantasy land. However, if it keeps you from believing horrible stuff about you, then it's done its job, no matter what it is to you. I happen to believe that it's all real. It's just real has been redefined for me. So anyway, there's a whole boatload of traffic that, man, I was trying to avoid it on the way to where we went today, and I did. However, I'm not going to avoid it on the way home, so I need to pay attention. But I hope that you're well, and I hope you enjoy your day no matter what part of the day you're in. And remember to get within your skin, because you're divine. It's so magical, so delightful, and so not asshole, and so fine. So take care of your non-asshole selves, and I will see you again next time. Take care, friends. Goodbye.